She was called greedy, immoral, a parasite on a dying empire. Newspapers turned her into a monster. Crowds needed someone to blame, and they chose her. But here's what history rarely asks. What if she never held real power? What if she never made the decision she was condemned for? And what if the evidence that mattered was quietly ignored? This is not the story people think they know. It's the story of how one woman became the face of crimes she did not command, and why history found it convenient to let her take the blame. Before she was hated, before she was blamed, before she was turned into a symbol, she was simply a young woman named Caroline Lacroix, born Blanche Delacroix. She did not come from wealth or political influence. There were no powerful relatives shaping her future, no inheritance waiting to secure her place in society. In late 19th century Europe, class boundaries were rigid. Birth often determined destiny. And for someone like Caroline, the future offered little security. She grew up without institutional protection, no family name that could shield her from scandal, no network capable of defending her reputation. Her early life was ordinary, fragile, and easily forgotten by history. This context matters because public memory often strips people of their beginnings. History prefers to judge from the peak of visibility, not from the place where vulnerability began. But none of this explains why she would later be blamed for things she never controlled. Her life changed when she entered the orbit of Leopold II. Leopold was not merely wealthy or influential. He was a king whose authority was reinforced by law, ceremony, and silence. The difference between them was not just age, it was power. He stood at the center of institutions designed to protect him. She stood alone. In royal Europe, mistresses occupied a strange position. They were visible but unofficial, talked about but excluded from governance. They did not sit in council meetings. They did not shape foreign policy. They did not command administrators or soldiers. Caroline entered a system that already existed. She did not create it. She did not control it. She was absorbed into it, and once absorbed, she became visible. And this is where proximity to power began to look like responsibility, even when it wasn't. By the late 1800s, Belgium faced mounting international criticism. The outrage wasn't about something happening at home. It was about something far away, something most people would never see firsthand. Reports described forced labor, brutality, and exploitation. Humanitarian groups spoke out. Foreign governments began to question Belgium's moral authority. That place was the Congo Free State. But blaming a monarch is difficult. Kings are protected by distance, ceremony, and bureaucracy. So public anger searched for a closer target, someone visible, someone symbolic. Caroline fit perfectly. She was known to the public. Her lifestyle was discussed openly, and she had no institutional shield. Blaming her allowed society to redirect outrage without confronting the deeper system that enabled colonial violence. But the real turning point hadn't happened yet. In the late 19th century, outrage did not travel through screens. It traveled through paper. Newspapers competed fiercely for attention. Sensational headlines sold more copies than careful explanations, and scandal, especially involving private relationship and power, spread faster than facts ever could. Caroline's name appeared again and again, not because new evidence emerged, but because repetition itself created belief. People did not ask whether the accusations were proven. They asked whether they had heard them before. They had. Cafes became echo chambers. Political cartoons simplified complex realities into grotesque images. Rumors hardened into assumptions. And once a person becomes familiar as a villain, evidence feels unnecessary. This is how reputations were destroyed long before the internet. Not by proof, but by exposure. Caroline did not lose control of her story in a courtroom. She lost it in print. And once newspapers decided who she was, there was no mechanism to reverse it. The press labeled her something she never was, Queen of the Congo. The title was powerful, dramatic, and completely false. She never governed the Congo. She never issued commands. She never controlled colonial policy. But the idea of a hidden woman pulling strings from behind the throne was emotionally satisfying. It transformed abstract systems into a single villain. And once a myth is repeated often enough, it becomes truth in the public mind. The myth survived because it was useful. Kings were treated as institutions. Mistresses were treated as moral corruption. Blaming Leopold meant confronting empire, economics, and law. Blaming Caroline meant confronting morality. One was abstract, the other was personal. A woman close to power felt dangerous in a way a powerful man never did. She embodied excess, temptation, and corruption, themes society already understood and feared. By focusing outrage on her, the public could preserve the illusion that the system itself was sound. She wasn't hated because she ruled. She was hated because she could be blamed. This is the hardest part of the story, and it requires honesty. Yes, Caroline benefited from Leopold's wealth. Yes, that wealth was connected to colonial exploitation, but benefit is not command. She did not design labor systems. She did not oversee administrators. She did not issue orders. Many men benefited from the same system: bankers, investors, officials. Few of them were remembered with equal outrage. The difference was visibility. Caroline became the human face of an inhuman system. By this point, most people think they understand what happened. That confidence is exactly why this story worked. Because once a narrative feels complete, no one looks for what's missing. Leopold gave her gifts: property, financial security, status. This was framed as evidence of her guilt. Yet royal courts were filled with men who received far more and were condemned far less. The outrage was selective. Her wealth was visible. Her gender made her an easier target. She became a moral symbol rather than a historical actor. Near the end of Leopold's life, a religious ceremony took place. It had no legal standing, but its symbolism was explosive. Public fear surged. Would she inherit more wealth? Would she escape accountability? From that moment, nuance disappeared. Her reputation was fixed. The monster narrative was complete. When Leopold died, Caroline lost protection overnight. Legal battles followed. Property was contested. Social acceptance vanished. The institutions that once tolerated her presence turned cold. Power had moved on. And when power moves on, it leaves scapegoats behind. Historical records show something inconvenient. She never held office, never signed policy, never commanded colonial authority. But nuance complicates outrage. History prefers clear villains. Systems are harder to explain. So the evidence faded, and the myth remained. History does not only record events, it edits them. Textbooks favor clarity. Villains are easier to teach than systems. A single face is easier to remember than a network of institutions. Caroline's story was simplified because simplification was convenient. Later, writers repeated earlier judgments instead of revisiting original records. Once she was labeled, the label traveled forward unchanged. Evidence was not destroyed. It was ignored. Was she innocent? No. She benefited from injustice. But was she responsible? That conclusion feels satisfying. It may also be incomplete. She was neither mastermind nor hero. She was a human being inside a brutal system. History didn't struggle to understand her. It struggled to explain itself. Caroline Lacroix was not erased from history. She was distorted. Her story reveals something uncomfortable. Societies often punish symbols instead of confronting systems. History didn't prove she was guilty. It simply needed someone to blame.